This is an emergency warning from the Immortal. Pay attention now. Critical information will be shared shortly. This is an emergency warning from the Immortal. Pay attention now. Critical information will be shared shortly. To all members of the Immortal watching this, leave Manchester immediately. Our forces are depleted and the battle will soon be lost. The Unsterblich are too strong. There's a reason they seized most of Europe so easily. They are strong and ruthless, and any members of this group who are captured will be tortured and only killed when they beg for it. Leave now, for your own sake. Get your families and get out of here. Go to rural areas where they are unlikely to find you. You are advised to head to the Northern Islands of Scotland. Once there you may be able to reunite with other members of the Immortal and live out the rest of your lives there. If you are unable to evacuate the city, commit suicide now. It is better to die quickly than be tortured mercilessly when you are captured. The Unsterblich are invading Greater Manchester from every direction imaginable. I reiterate, leave now. The Immortal appreciates your great service to this organization, but this has come to an end. The Unsterblich have won.
Welcome to the weekly information broadcast. Unfortunately, we have to announce that the facility will be going on full lockdown. Nobody is allowed to leave or enter the Lechberg facility. This is to protect the facility as a whole, as people leaving the facility could reveal its location given the current circumstances. Unfortunately, there has been a recent spike in violence around various territories, with the most notable recent example being the Perndale Omega facility, which was overrun by anarchists 3 days ago. Supplies are becoming scarcer in a lot of areas, and as such people are beginning to become desperate, and this facility has been locked down to prevent its location being revealed to those who may try and invade to steal resources. Unfortunately, one of our biggest suppliers, based in what was formerly known as North Carolina, has been destroyed as the owner of the business was Muslim and the leaders of the territory do not allow non-Christians to operate in the area, at much disgust to the impoverished residents stuck there. As such, we may start to suffer supply shortages ourselves. You are advised to use what food, water, gas, electricity etc. you have sparingly, and do as little manual labor as possible to reduce the amount of sustenance you need. This will be a tough period, there is no doubt about that. However, we can and will get through this. We wish you all well, and we look forward to updating you next week. Goodbye.
Dies ist ein Informationsupdate aus dem Deutschen Reich. Wir können bestätigen, dass das neue Konzentrationslager in Leipzig offiziell eröffnet wurde. Wir haben einen massiven Überschuss an Gefangenen und Widerstandskämpfern erlitten, und der Bau des größten Lagers des Imperiums wird uns helfen, die Erde von ihrer Existenz zu befreien. Wir haben das Vereinigte Königreich erfolgreich beansprucht. Das letzte Gebiet, das wir beanspruchen mussten, war Manchester, wo ein starker Widerstand gegen uns aufkam, und nachdem wir sie zurückgedrängt hatten, besiegten wir sie schließlich. Sie haben einen viel besseren Kampf geführt als andere Nationen und uns monatelang zurückgehalten, aber schließlich haben wir sie zurück nach Manchester geschoben und sie von der Erde gewischt. Europa hat endlich Frieden. Keine Spaltung mehr, keine Wut mehr, nur Frieden. Die Zeiten ändern sich, und wir haben bewiesen, dass unser Weg nach vorne immer der beste war.
This is an information update from the German Empire. We can confirm that the new concentration camp has been officially opened in Leipzig. We have suffered a massive surplus of prisoners and resistance fighters, and the construction of the largest camp in the empire will help us rid the earth of their existence. We have successfully claimed the United Kingdom. The final area to claim was Manchester, where a strong resistance faced off against us, and after pushing them back, we finally defeated them. They put up a much better fight than other nations, holding us off for months, but eventually, we pushed them back into Manchester and wiped them off the earth. Europe finally has peace. No more division, no more anger, just peace. Times are changing, and we have proven our way forward was always the best way forward.
We can now report that the battle with the tyrant leaders has finally concluded, and they have been executed. The leaders who ruled this territory with an iron fist have finally been dealt with, and freedom can finally commence. The suffering that has plagued this region of America can finally end, and we can begin the road to recovery. Unfortunately, our situation is not unique. Many territories, big and small, suffer from tyrannical leaders who keep all the wealth and let their citizens suffer in poverty. Many of the high-ranking officials who won the war 6 years ago that were part of the resistance took control of various areas and ruled with an iron fist. Our leaders were generals who were part of the U.S. government that lost the war but joined the resistance after being deemed useful to the resistance. They took over this area and ruled in a dictatorial manner. They are now dead. Our new leader was a soldier who was part of the resistance and fought in the battles on the front lines. He has prepared a statement, and we will now read it. Greetings, people of the Ash-Baked territory. I am your new leader. The pathway to healing can now begin as we rebuild this impoverished, deprived area. I remember the war, the pain, the suffering, the despair. 6 years ago, I was there at the Battle of Washington, D.C., fighting the U.S. government and the German group Die Unsterblich, who were helping Donald Trump maintain power. I saw the bullets flying by and the explosions, the chaos as the White House, armed to the teeth, started obliterating tanks and buildings. The city gradually turned to rubble, and I watched as the Unsterblich killed some of my oldest friends. We retreated and I mourned them. My resolve was stronger than ever, and it was this pain that drove me to fight against the U.S. government and take Washington in the second battle. I share your pain, your suffering, your despair. Biden and the resistance failed. They promised a new America and they failed to deliver. The U.S. has been reduced to an anarchistic land, with territories, most of them dirt poor, left to suffer, sometimes without choice, and sometimes by morally bankrupt tyrants. I will help this place rebuild, and bring the new America Biden failed to bring. Unfortunately, tensions are rising in this country. The territories who do have wealth are becoming greedy, and tensions are mounting as the rich begin to invade the poor and they prepare to defend what little resources they have. Another war is on the horizon, and it takes the brave, the courageous, and the determined to ensure good wins over evil.
Who we are is irrelevant. You need not know our names. You need only to listen to our advice. We are not some resistance group, nor a mysterious organization looking to rally supporters. We are merely here to inform the people of the slums of New York about the realities of life, report on current happenings, and question how we ended up in such a dire, hopeless situation. First of all, current events. Various territories across America are becoming restless. The majority of Americans have suffered in complete poverty for years, and certain territories are beginning to grow angry. They want to fight for resources and bring down those who did this to them. Richer groups are also becoming greedy, willing to steal resources from the poor to further their wealth. Understandably, these poor groups are gearing up to defend themselves. As a result of all this, war seems on the brink. Anger is rising to boiling point, and it seems inevitable that the pain and suffering the first war brought will return 100-fold. We need to ask ourselves how we ended up here. Biden and the resistance fought to bring us a new America and did not deliver. In reality, were they much better than the government they sought to take down? They both committed atrocities, both had leaders willing to do whatever they had to in order to win, and ultimately they were two sides of the same coin, greedy leaders desperate for power. Biden lied to us. He said he wanted a new America when both he and Trump are as un-American as they come. America values freedom, prosperity, integrity, bravery, and a willingness to stand up and fight for justice. Those values have been dead for years, and this war will put that in further jeopardy. Now is the time to evaluate, as we enter a period of further uncertainty, and reflect on how we ended up in this situation, and question why. Why are things so incredibly bleak?
It is with great regret that I released the code to bring us all together again. Welcome, my friends. 6 years it's been, and yet, here you stand before me, as though it were only yesterday. Unfortunately, our peace is finally threatened. California has remained untouched. However, various territories are now preparing to fight. The time we have spent thriving may now soon come to an end. Territories in what used to be known as Oregon and Nevada now threaten this state. Those who have had nothing are sharpening their pitchforks and preparing to take what they do not have. These people are angry and thirsty for blood. We will have to defend ourselves. They have combat experience. They have experienced war firsthand and have had to give blood, sweat and tears to survive. However, we have what they do not. Resources. We must use what we have to defend ourselves to prevent those savages from stealing what they do not deserve. California must not become what the rest of America is. A slum, where the scum of the earth mingle until they die of disease or hunger. Beware, my friends, we must tread carefully. These savages are ready to fight to the death. Arrogance will lose us what we have held onto for 6 years.
This is a message coming from the Carson Territory. Our plans are about to commence. Soldiers of the territory have been ordered to gather at 0900 hours by the transports to begin the raid. The elites in California have been stockpiling resources for years while we have suffered, and it is time they get a taste of their own medicine.
The Portland Territory military are to arm up and prepare for the California raid. We have intercepted transmissions from there and they're preparing for an attack on their biggest cities. While they aren't as experienced in combat as we are, with their extensive resources, they'll put up a fight if given time to prepare.
Our main target is Sacramento, California.
Our target is Sacramento.
Many elites have hoarded resources here, and our military experience will mean we will overwhelm them there. Their innate superiority complex will be their downfall. Finally, the suffering of this territory will end. Finally, the elites will feel the pain they've sat and watched for years.
They have extensive resources stockpiled there. However, we must avoid other groups. They will also be desperate to seize resources, and any encounters with other groups conducting raids will result in a conflict which will drain resources we cannot afford to waste. We must be as fast and as quiet as possible. We must not start a major conflict.
There has been a battle in California. Various groups carried out raids on various cities in California after they became aware of the fact that the area had been completely untouched by the poverty, famine, and suffering that has plagued the rest of America. Being unaffected by the initial war, the elites of America sat back and watched over 325 million Americans suffer in poverty. Territories raided California for its resources, and over half of the population there are believed to have died in the conflict. It is disgusting that the elites would allow us to suffer as they sit back and thrive, and the remaining elites who fled must be hunted down and brought to justice.
The elites in America have exposed how disgusting those that control us are. We must fight for resources. We must fight for survival. For 6 years we have sat back and allowed ourselves to suffer. Now we must fight and join together with other territories to fight corrupt leaders and finally build that new America. The time for pacifism and negotiation is over. Now is the time for bloodshed.
We're here in Detroit, a cesspit of crime and corruption. This territory, comprised of what used to be the city as well as territory further outland, is controlled by corrupt ex-resistance leaders. The people of this territory are poorer than most in this nation, having virtually nothing. The leaders are the opposite, richer than most in the nation yet poorer than the Californian elites. They've hugged the wealth and controlled by fear. There are many territories in this country. After state and federal governments collapsed following the initial war, various ex-resistance and U.S. government leaders took control of territories, some big, some small. Some of these territories are coping, with respectable leaders who care about their people. Others are not so fortunate, controlled by corrupt leaders. The people who run the territory of Detroit are one of the worst in the country. Riots have heated up in recent days after the Battle of California and the reveal that the elites there thrived all these years, coupled with the destruction of Joe Biden's memorial. We believe they conducted this to find his body in an attempt to destroy it, but his body was never placed in the memorial as it was never recovered, with the circumstances surrounding his death unknown. Riots here are at an all-time high, with people demanding the leaders share their wealth, and to stop allowing the people to suffer. We have information that the leaders have briefed their own personal militaries, and we believe they may attempt to stop riots with lethal force.
This is an information broadcast coming from the leaders of the territory of Detroit. It is mandatory that you watch this broadcast. Critical information will be shared. Unfortunately, the riots and violence in this territory has increased exponentially in recent days. We will tolerate this no longer. Groups of rioters have been executed today, and our message is simple: attempt to cause violence in this territory and you will be executed. Your reasoning is irrelevant. We will not tolerate sedition, and attempting to overthrow your leaders will be met with lethal force. If that has not deterred you, the following piece of information may do so. People guilty of violence will have their families executed. People who have committed extreme violent crimes have been taken to a prison camp, and their families have been captured. Believe citizens of this territory have been protesting against our wealth, and how only 5% of our wealth circulates in the main territory. This is true. However, due to the rioting, we have decided to punish you. From now on, only 1% of our wealth will circulate. Hopefully the suffering this brings will deter you from going against us. This concludes this information broadcast. Hopefully you will all make the right choice, not just for you, but your families.
This is an unscheduled broadcast. Unfortunately, it has come to our attention that the leaders of the territory of Detroit have gunned down rioters and protesters, fighting to have the leaders to act and not allow the suffering most citizens there had to put up with. A few hours ago, we detected a broadcast from the leaders of Detroit. This broadcast was full of disturbing threats, such as "we will slaughter your families like pigs," and we believe some of our high-ranking generals have a particular liking for children. They also acknowledged the fact that they have all the wealth and allow the poor people to suffer, and as a punishment, decided to take what little money the people had away. This is disgusting. We cannot tolerate such actions from corrupt groups. The Grand Rapids territory has thought carefully and has decided to declare war on the Detroit territory. America has a large number of corrupt leaders who enable the suffering of their people, and we cannot tolerate it any longer. We will now take military action against them and encourage other territories to do the same.
This is a broadcast from the Cleveland Territory. We have received intel from the Grand Rapids Territory that the territory of Detroit has committed atrocities against its own people. They have threatened people who wish to protest against their actions, and decided to take what little wealth the people have away. The Grand Rapids Territory have decided that the best course of action is military action, and we have decided to join them in declaring war on Detroit. We cannot allow disgusting leaders to rule through fear and sit back as their citizens suffer. Things in this country must change, and today is the day we begin the fight for the change. Our military simply cannot cope with the force of multiple territories trying to gain control of ours. We cannot lose the city. The amount of classified intel they could obtain and use against us and other territories is massive, and we cannot allow it to fall into enemy hands. It seems we have one option: activate Contingency Immortal. You are all aware of what this involves. We will now vote as to whether or not we activate it. We all know the potential consequences. Vote now. The votes have all been collected. Operation Immortal will be carried out. I wish you all good luck.
Detroit will soon be in our hands. There are too many territories here for them to handle.
Wir haben ein Notsignal von einer Gruppe von Beamten in Detroit, Vereinigte Staaten von Amerika, erhalten. Nach einem Ereignis, bei dem sie Zivilisten töteten, führten viele nahegelegene Gebiete Krieg gegen sie und zwangen die Beamten von Detroit, um Hilfe zu bitten. Als Grund für die Bitte um unsere Hilfe nannten sie ihre geheimen Dokumente, die sie und andere Führer belasteten. Wir haben das Luftbataillon 112 zur Unterstützung geschickt, und die dortigen Militärs, die versuchten, das Regime zu stürzen, wurden vom Erdboden gewischt. Unsere Zeit dort hat uns eines gelehrt: Die Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika sind unglaublich arm, und wenn wir unsere Ressourcen in die Region drängen würden, würden wir leicht die Kontrolle über das Land übernehmen. Die Führer von Detroit haben einen fatalen Fehler gemacht. Indem sie versuchen, ihr Regime zu bewahren und sicherzustellen, dass ihre Freunde an der Macht bleiben, haben sie den kollektiven Untergang ihrer Nation gesichert. Dieser Nation fehlt die Einheit, und sie wird ihren Untergang beweisen, wenn die Unsterblich an oberster Stelle steht.
Translating audio message. We have received a distress signal from a group of officials in Detroit, United States of America. After an event in which they killed civilians, many nearby territories waged war on them, forcing the Detroit officials to request help, citing the classified documents incriminating them and other leaders as their reason for requesting our help. We sent Air Battalion 112 in to assist, and the militaries there attempting to bring down the regime were wiped off the face of the earth. Our time there has taught us one thing. The United States of America is incredibly poor, and if we pushed our resources into the area, we'd easily take control of the country. The Detroit leaders have made a fatal mistake. By trying to preserve their regime and ensure their friends remain in power, they have assured the collective demise of their nation. This nation lacks unity, and it will prove their downfall when Unsterblich reigns supreme.
This is a message from the Boston Territory. Recent events have shown that this country needs change, and the catalyst for that change has arrived. Unsterblich, the group which helped Donald Trump take control of this country in 2020 and took control of Europe in recent years, have decided to rid this country of its pain and the suffering by eliminating all those who oppose them. We pledge our allegiance to Unsterblich. We will assist in their efforts to fix America, and we will do all we can to defeat those who try and go against them.
Like many other territories, we pledge ourselves to Unsterblich. They are the only way America can be truly restored to its former glory. Do not resist their advances. Resistance is futile and against America's wishes. If you show any signs of resistance to them, you will be deemed un-American and executed. It is in your best wishes to accept their generous actions. They bring only peace.
This message will be relayed nationwide. This message will play on television and on radio. This message has one purpose: to unite the nation. After the Battle of Detroit, the corrupt leaders requested assistance, and Unsterblich sent in a fleet to assist them. Their advances into nearby cities suggest they plan on seizing full control of the nation. Various territories led by corrupt leaders have pledged their allegiance to Unsterblich. Various territories have also made it clear they will resist Unsterblich advances, but scattered they stand no chance. The United States of America is faced with an existential threat. This country has been divided for years, decades even. The division in this country precedes the war 6 years ago, and in these dark times, we must unite and work together if we are to defeat Unsterblich. This nation was built on the values of freedom, justice, and truth. These values are under threat from a greedy fascist regime hell-bent on securing America. To the various territories of America, your wealth, your religion, your beliefs are all irrelevant. We must all come together to defeat a common enemy. Together, we can defeat Unsterblich. This is a message from the New Orleans Territory on behalf of the remaining Southern territories and the militaries of territories who evacuated south. This is a major information update on the war. The war began in January of this year, and with a lot of territories across America uniting, the war initially went well. The Unsterblich were arrogant and did not expect us to unite, and united our forces initially proved a match. However, upon requesting backup, our united forces did not stand a chance, and their expertise at invading nations showed. Our forces have dwindled over these past 6 months, and we have been continually forced to retreat. Many of the larger territories have been destroyed, and those that survived were forced to retreat towards southern states. The history of America after the war in 2021 was shrouded in mystery for years. But in these months, bits and pieces of information have been collected, and we have a better picture of how America ended up with no real law or order. The gap between the War of 2021 and the Battle of California in 2026 is known as the Wilderness Years. But finally, things are clearer. In March 2021, the resistance liberated Washington, D.C. and officially took control of America. However, shortly after, many of the top resistance generals were admitted into the resistance despite the resistance making it clear to potential followers that they would all be executed. Other skirmishes occurred all over the country as smaller groups cropped up, angry over the fact that America hadn't changed all that much, but these were squashed by the new U.S. government. These skirmishes left a lot of cities in America in ruins, and poverty began to increase. In 2019, the poverty rate in the country was at 10.9%. By 2023, that had increased to 36.4%. In November 2023, President Joe Biden,
at the age of 81, was reported missing. 4 days later, he was found dead in the middle of a road 63.5 miles from the White House. Autopsies were inconclusive, and to this day nobody knows how he died. As poor as his reign was, he was an imposing leader and made difficult decisions. His death left a massive power vacuum, with corrupt government officials scrambling to take power. Conflict broke out between them, causing further destruction across cities in America. The war eventually left the country with no clear leader, with the government collapsing and the various leaders forming their own territories. We're used to seeing a map of the U.S. like this, with the 48 mainland states. However, the U.S. map is now more like this. There are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of territories in America, and plotting them all on a map would be impossible, as clear borders between each territory do not exist. States no longer exist, and when referred to, it is merely to give you an idea of where a place is. The war over these past 6 months is believed to have reduced the U.S. population to below 90 million people, with the extreme poverty finally reaching breaking point and millions dying of starvation and disease. However, there is hope. Our position in the southern USA has revealed many hidden secrets. One secret we came across was of Biden's activity during the wilderness years. It is now known that Biden knew that one day the Unsterblich would attempt to invade the U.S., and so in his paranoia, he funded research into all sorts of scientific and military projects, the blueprints for one of the most significant ones we have obtained. The blueprints detail how to construct a device known as the Controlled Thermonuclear Fusion Device, a massive source of energy which uses thermonuclear fusion to create enormous amounts of energy, which if harnessed could be used to build a military empire, and help to bring the many other blueprints Biden created to life. The device was planned to be built in the disused Avalon Air Force Base in Florida, built in 2022, and it could be constructed now in the deep chambers of the base. The reactor produces energy in the same way the sun does, combining two hydrogen nuclei to create larger hydrogen nuclei, releasing energy. This requires intense heat and pressure, and the 200-foot-tall device would need to be built in a chamber suitable for these conditions. Many attempts have been made to create such a device, but the amount of time and money Biden poured into the project and the scientists he had working on the project means it is believed the blueprints could be used by some of the best minds in America to bring the device to life. However, a thermonuclear fusion device has never been built, and it would take around 6 months to construct. The resources required are detailed in the blueprints, and the best scouts will be needed in order to steal resources from Unsterblich-controlled facilities in Europe. The best scientists in America would also have to be contacted and brought to the base to construct the device. Soldiers part of the various territories' militaries should sign up to help build the device, as while the scientists will figure out how to build it, soldiers will be needed to physically put it together. Finally, this device brings America hope.
We have information to bring you regarding resource gathering. We have several top operatives and scouts working all over Eastern Europe preparing to raid storage units for resources. As far as we are aware, the Unsterblich are completely unaware of our operation. We've also heard back from operatives in the EAS searching for scientists to help on the project, and several of America's great minds are being taken to Avalon Air Force Base to begin work on the device. However, the plan still hangs by a thread, as a single mistake could alert Unsterblich, and the whole plan would fall apart. Currently, we are ahead of schedule, but this could easily change. I have no more information to report.
This is an information update coming from an operative who has recently returned to Avalon Air Force Base. They have compiled this information, and they will remain unnamed to ensure their identity is protected for further operations. The project is still ahead of schedule, with over 150 top scientists working on the project. The first batch of resources from Eastern Europe have arrived at the base, and all of the territories who had to evacuate into the south have all volunteered their forces to help construct the device. However, I believe that our operations have a fundamental flaw. The scientists are being given too much freedom. They must be monitored at all times as they have the potential to unravel the project. All scientists working with us should be frequently checked and their backgrounds should be scrutinized to ensure they have no ties to the Unsterblich or history of corruption. Their contact to the outside world should be limited to prevent people outside obtaining information on the project. The Unsterblich are becoming increasingly enraged, with most territories now on the run. There are no easy targets and they are continually searching with no leads. They have no idea what is going on, but scientists have to be monitored to ensure they do not accidentally or deliberately release information to the outside world. This concludes the information update, and the next update will occur following the next significant event in the project.
Dies ist eine wichtige Aktualisierung der Gebiete, die von ihren ursprünglichen Standorten geflohen sind. Offensichtlich hatten wir kein Glück, nach diesen Überlebenden zu suchen. Wir haben jetzt jedoch einen Vorsprung. Ein Wissenschaftler, der mit den Überlebenden zusammenarbeitet, hat uns viele Informationen gestanden, mit denen wir sie vom Erdboden wischen können. Wir wissen jetzt, dass sie mit der Arbeit an einem Gerät begonnen hatten, das eine große Menge Energie in einem bisher unerhörten Luftwaffenstützpunkt liefert. Wissenschaftler wurden zur Arbeit an dem Projekt herangezogen, aber ihre Familien wurden zurückgelassen. Ein Wissenschaftler, den wir nicht nennen können, um ihre Identität zu schützen, pfiff, als er bemerkte, dass er sich in einem unserer Artillerieziele befand. Sie baten darum, dass ihr Leben im Austausch für Informationen verschont bleibt. Wenn wir schnell zuschlagen, können wir dies beenden, da das Gerät noch nicht konstruiert wurde. In Europa arbeiten Mitarbeiter, die seit Monaten unsere Einrichtungen überfallen. Wir haben jetzt den Standort ihrer Einrichtung und müssen schnell zuschlagen, um dies zu beenden.
Translating audio message. This is a major update on the territories who have fled from their original locations. Obviously, we have had no luck searching for these survivors. However, we now have a lead. A scientist working with the survivors has confessed to us plenty of information we can use to wipe them off the face of the earth. We now understand that they had begun work on a device that provides a large amount of energy in a previously unheard of Air Force base. Scientists were brought in to work on the project, but their families were left behind. A scientist who we cannot name to protect their identity blew the whistle when they became aware that they were located in one of our artillery targets. They asked for their lives to be spared in exchange for information. If we strike quickly, we can end this, as the device has not been constructed yet. They have operatives working in Europe who have been raiding our facilities for months. We now have the location of their facility, and we must strike quickly to end this.
Obviously, we are all aware that the Unsterblich are aware of our plans, and it must be accelerated in order to avoid it collapsing. The crew of 10 has been assembled to obtain the final batch of resources in Munich. Once brought back to Avalon, the final parts can be added to the reactor, and production of weaponry can begin. However, the mission is obviously very dangerous, as it is no longer a stealth mission. The Unsterblich are fully aware we are attempting this, and so more combat-ready operatives have been sent. The 10-man crew will be split into 2 cargo ships, so that if it is shot down, the mission is not over. Unsterblich will throw everything at us. We cannot waste time. The operatives must be in and out. This mission is dangerous. The crew are all aware they may not return. Approaching Germany now. So far we haven't been spotted, but Unsterblich ships are sweeping the area.
Unsterblich around 12 hours away. You're gonna have to hurry up.
Wir glauben, dass sie eine Crew von Mitarbeitern in Deutschland haben. Ich möchte alle Augen auf den Himmel richten. Wir müssen dieses Kriegsschiff ausschalten.
Alert, alert, alert. Unsterblich making ground. Our sensors have detected their presence in Tennessee. They're moving in fast.
They spotted us. We're being swarmed out here. We're almost at the facility, but it's mayhem out here.
Hier befindet sich die Avalon Air Force Base. Wir sind ungefähr 300 Meilen entfernt. Unsere größte Flotte wird eingeschickt.
One of our ships has landed and they're collecting the resources. We're staying in the air to attract attention. We should be out soon.
Alert, alert, alert. Unsterblich are less than 200 miles away. Scanners say they're currently about 10 miles north of Tuscaloosa.
We're getting out now. We've got the resources, but we've lost 2 of our men. We had to leave them behind. Ada in Florida is about 3 hours with these ships. When we arrive, we're not gonna have long before the Unsterblich reach the base.
Die Schiffe wurden beim Verlassen des deutschen Luftraums entdeckt. Verlasse sie, wir müssen uns auf den Luftwaffenstützpunkt konzentrieren. Die voraussichtliche Ankunftszeit beträgt 3 Stunden.
We're landing. Get people out here to move the supplies.
Wir haben die Basis entdeckt. Unsere Streitkräfte sind nur wenige Minuten entfernt. Sie werden bald zu Staub zerfallen.
This is a message from the man who runs this Air Force base. You have come in your thousands to destroy this base, before we build a device that could create an empire that threatens your reign. Before you annihilate us, I think we are entitled to explain ourselves. Your forces are very impressive, but in a similar fashion to the corrupt resistance leaders who ruined this country during the wilderness years, you're thick as oatmeal. We're building a fusion reactor, which would build a military empire, but scrambling to complete it as our enemy approaches is pointless. The device isn't a weapon. We couldn't possibly build weaponry to defeat you fast enough. The logic doesn't make sense, which makes it all the more sweet knowing you fell for it. You're under the impression the scientist blew the whistle and gave you information to protect his family. He actually did it under our orders. You had no luck finding us, so we thought we'd give you a hand, because our plans to build this reactor went so smoothly that it's been active since October. We've been building our army since then, and you've walked right into our little trap. Our forces surround you. Before we send you into hell, any last words? Finally, America is at peace. Finally, suffering and poverty and pain is coming to an end and this country can prosper. However, the battle is not over. The Unsterblich may not be in America, but they still have an empire in Europe. They must be hunted and defeated to restore peace to the planet. Other countries are afraid. Countries like China and Russia have refused to act out of fear. They know they simply wouldn't stand a chance. But with our forces, we can defeat them. Europe must be liberated. However, to the men, women, and children of America, you can for the first time in almost 8 years, relax. The war, at least in America, has won.